Chapter 25-25, Conquer. Chapter 25-25, Conquer. Must he take it back? Yi Futian looked at Taoist monk Mu and said with a smile, "You may certainly give it a try, sir." "Very good." Taoist monk Mu nodded. As soon he finished speaking, this area of the sea was suddenly enveloped by flames, turning it into a domain of fire. This was a domain of blue and green fire. All around Taoist monk Mu, these bluish-green flames turned into a lotus of the same color. Above the lotus, strands of ethereal aura of the divine flames shrouded this boundless space and swooped towards Yi Futian. "This is forged by my life spirit. My comprehension of the flaming great path is integrated into it. It is called the fire of creation, this being the green lotus of creation, possessing the power of creation that could continue procreating. Although it is not yet a mature enough technique, the power it possesses is considerable. If you have really cultivated to the 9th realm, you will be incinerated as soon as you touch it. It's not too late for you to return the deity map to me now. I can still let you live," Taoist monk Mu said. Yi Futian felt the fire of the green lotus of creation and knew that it was the fire of tribulation. After having survived the divine tribulation of the great path, he integrated his own comprehension of the flaming great path and forged this fire of creation. Indeed, it had the potential to be stronger in the future, but it required an opportunity, as well as the baptisms of other divine flames between heaven and earth. "Sir, rather than using it to kill, this fire may be more suitable for alchemy," Yi Futian said. "How about I make a wager with you?" Taoist monk Mu looked a little surprised as he stared at Yi Futian. This young man looked calm and confident, with absolutely no change in his expression when facing the domain of fire. It seemed as if he was not afraid of it at all. "What are you wagering?" Taoist monk Mu asked as his eyes fixed on Yi Futian. "I will bathe in your fire. If I can't bear it, I will return the deity map to you. In addition, I will gift you the shadow and solar true fire," Yi Futian replied. "The shadow and solar true fire?" Taoist monk Mu stared at Yi Futian. "Who are you? Let's talk about the stakes at hand for now. So, how about it?" Yi Futian did not respond directly. To bathe in the green lotus with flesh without resorting to external forces or other treasures to resist? Taoist monk Mu mused as he looked at Yi Futian. These words were too preposterous. Could someone in the 9th realm really make such a wager? "Yes," Yi Futian nodded. "Very well." Taoist monk Mu agreed with a nod. "You are not asking what will happen if I win. If you win, then I am clearly not capable enough and will be at your mercy anyway. What else can I do?" Taoist monk Mu replied. Yi Futian smiled because this was indeed the case. If he could bathe in the lotus of creation, then the outcome of this battle couldn't have been clearer. What other conditions could there be? "Please go ahead," Yi Futian said. Taoist monk Mu stared at Yi Futian. This arrogant white-haired young man. The green lotus of creation under him flew out towards Yi Futian. It settled beneath Yi Futian, and the lotus bloomed around Yi Futian until it wrapped his entire body within. Suddenly, the divine flames from the lotus of creation enveloped Yi Futian's body, trying to swallow him. Yi Futian, just as he had said, stood there without moving. He was bathing in the fire from the lotus of creation, his body radiant beyond description. The divine light flowed upon him like a divine body of the great path, immortal and indestructible. The divine fire invaded and penetrated his body, but Yi Futian's expression remained unchanged as he stood there unscathed. The flowing divine light of the great path actually seemed to swallow up strands of divine fire, so that the divine flames from the lotus of creation surged into his body, as if tempering and nourishing him instead. There was a change in the eyes of Taoist monk Mu. He looked at the white-haired young man in front of him, and saw that even his head of white hair seemed to have transformed into the great path, impervious to the divine flames. This kind of ability shocked him to his core because even Li Qingfeng, the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion, would absolutely dare not do the same, as he would no doubt be burned to death. In their battle, he used only his powerful swordsmanship to suppress Taoist monk Mu. But this white-haired young man dared to stand there like this. Moreover, in his perception, the opponent's cultivation was only in the Run Huang of the 9th realm. So how did he do it? Taoist monk Mu thought his setup was meticulous and well calculated. To find the deity map, he was willing to take tremendous risks. If Li Qingfeng was not so sensible, he might have already slaughtered him. He concealed the deity map while trading, and had left a mark on the trader in order to retrieve it after the storm had passed over. However, it seemed that he had picked the one cultivator he should not have been trading with. What do you think? Yi Futian smiled and asked Taoist monk Mu. Taoist monk Mu stared at the handsome man before him, and the flames on his body grew stronger as the lotus of creation was still expanding. The monstrous divine flames submerged Yi Futian's body, burying him inside the fire. It was as if all this was refining Yi Futian's body. But even so, the fire still could not touch Yi Futian's body. His body of flesh and blood was like a divine body, impervious to the flames of the great path. At this moment, Taoist monk Mu understood that the strength of this youngster had far surpassed himself. He could sit directly in the flames of the great path, as if nothing was happening. How could Taoist monk Mu even continue to fight this battle? The reason why Yi Futian dared to make this wager was due to none other than his confidence in the divine body. His physical body was cast by the divine body of Xinjia, the great emperor, through his own comprehension. He had been baptized numerous times by the divine tribulation. This body of his was one of his strongest methods. He has also been bathed in the flames of rules, with the shadow and solar true fire still inside his body. So he was pretty confident he could take on the power of this flaming great path with his body. He could even devour the fire of the lotus of creation. Taoist monk Mu looked deeply at Yi Futian and knew that he had lost. And he had lost miserably and completely. Buzz. In just a flash, Taoist monk Mu disappeared from where he was without a trace. He had chosen to escape. The fire surrounding Yi Futian thinned out into just wisps of divine fire, then dissipated altogether with the disappearance of Taoist monk Mu. Obviously, Taoist monk Mu did not want to fulfill his part of the bargain. So if he could leave, he would. But Yi Futian merely revealed a cold smile as his figure flashed, disappearing from where he was. He reappeared directly behind Taoist monk Mu, not too far away. When Taoist monk Mu sensed the presence behind him, his face changed slightly. He took a step forward, moving like flowing water, leaving countless afterimages in the void. He was like a gray stream flowing between heaven and earth. Yi Futian's body disappeared from where he was again. Taoist monk Mu had very powerful methods, and was an expert at speed. His ability to escape and camouflage was second to none. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yi Futian, who had cultivated Buddha's celerity. The two of them shuttled continuously upon the sea with extreme speed. Taoist monk Mu fled for some time. He found that he could not get rid of Yi Futian. At this time, however, a figure in white directly blocked in front of him, and Taoist monk Mu changed his location immediately. Nonetheless, Yi Futian appeared in front of him once again. After the same thing repeated several consecutive times, Taoist monk Mu finally stopped and did not run away again. He looked at the white-haired young man in front of him and said, "I didn't expect that I would fall into the hands of a youngster. Who are you?" "Yi Futian from the original realm." Yi Futian responded. Taoist monk Mu was stunned. Clearly, he had heard of this name before. When he was in Jiui City, he heard that Yi Futian had slaughtered Zhong Miao. But because he was not concentrated on anything but the deity map at the time, he didn't pay too much attention, or else he would have guessed Yi Futian's true identity a long time ago. "It's well deserved," Taoist monk Mu said with a smile. "What do you want in return? Your cultivation is exceptional, and I especially appreciate the fact that you are a grandmaster of alchemy. I would like to invite you to join me at Ziwei Segmentum in the original realm. What do you think?" Yi Futian said. Taoist monk Mu was taken aback, looking at Yi Futian. He thought he truly deserved the reputation of being the #1 genius talent in the original realm. "You want me to follow you, obey your order?" Taoist monk Mu asked. "I did not say that, but if you want to see this way, I have nothing else to add," responded Yi Futian. "I have been as free as the clouds all these years, and have been cultivating on my own for countless years. I have traveled all over the West Sea, and am accustomed to moving about freely. I don't much like to be constrained by others. If I wanted to join other forces, I would have done it a long time ago, and am not waiting until now. I am afraid I cannot comply with what you are asking of me, replied Taoist monk Mu. Fine, Yi Futian said. As soon as his voice fell, this area of the sea was covered by a terrifying aura of the Great Path that directly overpowered and sealed the area shut. A murderous intent flashed across Yi Futian's eyes as a terrible coercion pressed down on this space, shrouding Taoist monk Mu completely. At this moment, an extremely powerful murderous intent emerged from this handsome white-haired young man. What do you want? Taoist monk Mu fixed his eyes on Yi Futian. You used me to hide the deity map, and if my cultivation were weaker, perhaps my life would be forfeited. Now, you are the only one who knows that I have the deity map, and you ask me what I want to do. Yi Futian continued. What's more, when I hunted and killed Zhong Miao, it was so that my true strength could be concealed. Until this day, no one knows the strength I really possess. But now you know, so what do you think I am going to do? Suddenly, Taoist monk Mu didn't feel so well, and his face had a terrible look on it. No matter how he looked at it, Yi Futian had to get rid of him based on these 2 points. It was completely understandable, too. If he were standing in Yi Futian's shoes, he would do the same, and that was to silence him. As soon as his voice faded, a horrific murderous intent swept out. Divine swords lined up in the sky, all pointing at Taoist monk Mu. Taoist monk Mu looked up and felt this terrifying coercion. His heart was beating fast. He obviously knew that Yi Futian was not joking. I can refine some pills for you, Taoist monk Mu quickly replied. Refining pills? Yi Futian laughed coldly. The divine light of the sun and moon appeared above the firmament, as the shadow/solar power descended on this space at the same time. He said, I am also an alchemist myself. Why else would I bother looking for the deity map? I wanted to recruit you into the Ziwei segmentum, not because you are indispensable, but because I need to spend more time on cultivation instead of alchemy. I thought I could work with you to improve your alchemical abilities after we find the celestial mountain, and let you be the one responsible for matters in alchemy. I thought it was a win-win proposition. But you thought it was because I need some pills? His voice resounded throughout the void. Taoist monk Mu's heart trembled. Even his mind was destabilized, and his will shook because of Yi Futian's words. Taoist monk Mu had lived for a long time, but he had never seen such a terrifying individual. Although Li Qingfeng was powerful, he was nothing like Yi Futian. Work with Li Qifeng or Yi Futian. Which one of them was stronger? Yi Futian did not just frighten him, but also appealed to his greed with the promise of searching for the celestial mountain, improving his alchemical strength, and entrusting him with alchemical matters. Therefore, he did not have the slightest doubt as to what Yi Futian said. From a logical standpoint, it was a flawless argument. Yi Futian could have easily killed him already, and he didn't because he had value to be used. Boom! The divine swords fell down, and the murderous intent shot to the sky. Yi Futian had a sharp murderous intent in his eyes as well. It seemed as if he was ready to deliver the final blow. Taoist monk Mu's heart palpitated as he said, I submit. Buzz! The divine sword slammed down, causing Taoist monk Mu's expression to change to shock. The aura of the Great Path exploded on his body, as the lotus of creation flew towards the divine swords, blocking their attack. However, he stared at Yi Futian in fright. If he was determined to kill him, why talk to him at all? You agreed to my wager, but you broke your promise and evaded me. Now you reluctantly agree under the threat of death. How can I trust you? Yi Futian said as the divine swords continued to fall down, aiming squarely at Taoist monk Mu. At this moment, Taoist monk Mu finally realized that Yi Futian was so aggressive because he was truly moved to kill. If he failed to give this man a satisfactory answer, he would most certainly die on the West Sea today. I hereby swear that I am willing to follow you, Taoist monk Mu said loudly. If you still don't believe me, you can look inside my memories and learn of my secrets. Then, you will know the true from the false. When Yi Futian heard him, his divine consciousness stopped its downward motion, but the murderous intent on his body was still potent. He floated forward, stopped in front of Taoist monk Mu. He said coldly, loosen up your consciousness. With that, His divine consciousness pierced into Taoist monk Mu's brow chakra, and suddenly, Taoist monk Mu's memory was revealed to him. After a while, Yi Futian retracted his divine consciousness and withdrew from the memory of Taoist monk Mu. He sneered inside. As expected, under the threat of death and temptation, there was always an opportunity to bargain. It turned out that Taoist monk Mu still had family somewhere, but no one knew of them. He had hidden it deep inside. The divine swords dissipated, as well as the murderous intent. Over the West Sea, the sea breeze passed through as the sun shone on the sparkling surface of the sea. Everything returned to normal, and the sun was warm and peaceful. If you had agreed sooner, it would have saved us a lot of trouble, Yi Futian said with a smile. Let's wish us both a happy and successful partnership. Taoist monk Mu looked at Yi Futian's handsome visage, with a smile on his face like a spring breeze, but he felt a chill in his heart. He was in fact a little afraid of Yi Futian. The young man in front of him was more terrifying than many older guys he had seen. None of them were even close to this man. This time, he lost fair and square. But now he had no more thoughts of disloyalty. I don't dare to call it a partnership, but I should try my best to assist Ren Huangyi. Taoist monk Mu knew his place well. Although the person in front of him was younger, he was more than just a little bit stronger than Taoist monk Mu. Since he had agreed to stand down, it was only natural for him to recognize their positions in relation to one another and behave accordingly. Yi Futian looked deeply at Taoist monk Mu and didn't mind it. He smiled and said, "Please forgive me if I offended you, but I had to do it. I don't have much choice in the cultivation world, as a wrong step was a matter of life and death. Now that we are working together, we will join hands to find the ancient imperial celestial mountain, and I will help you to become a top alchemy grandmaster." "I understand." Taoist monk Mu nodded and replied. Chapter 25-26, Yi Futian's Ambition. Chapter 25-26, Yi Futian's ambition on this trip to the West Sea Domain. Not only was he able to use the West Sea Domain chief's manor as an example to deter the other principalities, but also now he had procured the deity map. He had also successfully recruited an alchemist of the Tribulation Plane. This was a trip full of rewards. However, Yi Futian was still not contented. Now with the deity map in hand, if he could find the ancient imperial celestial mountain, he would have the opportunity to create the most powerful alchemy base camp in all of the divine prefecture, making Ziwei Segmentum a holy land for alchemy. As a result, the Ziwei Segmentum was bound to usher in another great transformation. Of course, even if he did not find the ancient imperial celestial mountain, Yi Futian would form a team of alchemists to help him in the efforts of refining elixirs of all sorts, thus expanding the power of the Ziwei Segmentum. Now that chaos abounds, the Ziwei Segmentum, in all its uniqueness, must strive to be even stronger in the face of all the powers of the world. You have been cultivating alchemy for many years. You must know a lot about the alchemy world. I want to assemble a team of alchemists. Can you help me? Yi Futian said to Taoist monk Mu. I should do my best. It's just that alchemists are pretty arrogant by nature. If it is not for a compelling enough reason, they will not be easily recruited. However, if you can find the ancient imperial celestial mountain, it would be a great incentive to powerful alchemists, and would easily attract a powerful group of alchemists to serve you, Taoist monk Mu said. Yi Futian nodded, recognizing that the man was telling the truth. If Taoist monk Mu hadn't tried to take advantage of Yi Futian, he would not be faced with the backlash and forced to submit to Yi Futian in the end. If it weren't by force, perhaps Taoist monk Mu would much rather die than surrender. Aside from that, I will also need some medicinal materials for refining pills, so I will need to trouble you with the matter of procuring them. Yi Futian continued. Also previously in Jui City, did you and the pavilion master of Breeze Pavilion reach some kind of agreement? He knew very well that the pavilion master of Breeze Pavilion did not let Taoist monk Mu go so easily for no reason. The two had communicated through voice transmission, and they must have reached a tacit agreement. Just now, when he rifled through Taoist monk Mu's memory, he had seen something to that effect, although he did not specifically look for it. After all, Taoist monk Mu's memory was massive, so Yi Futian simply amplified some useful memory for extraction, those that could be used to make Taoist monk Mu comply. Taoist monk Mu nodded. I did reach a consensus with Li Qingfeng before. He let me go, and I will find the deity map, then work together to solve the mystery of the deity map, and find the ancient imperial celestial mountain. He didn't dare to lie. Yi Futian had rifled through his memories, and he had no idea which ones Yi Futian looked at, and which ones he didn't. He had no idea if Yi Futian was testing him. Yi Futian didn't doubt his words. He had seen the memories, and so it was certain that Taoist monk Mu would not dare to betray him. What's the mystery of the deity map? Yi Futian asked. Before, when I invaded it with my divine consciousness, what I saw was just a map. However, I can't seem to find the same exact place anywhere in the Western Sea domain. I wondered if it was because some islands had disappeared from the changes over time. Besides that, what else is there? Yes, there is. Taoist monk Mu nodded. I have been tracking the deity map for many years, and my elders told me that my ancestors were the survivors who once escaped the ancient imperial celestial mountain, so I was from the alchemical branch of the ancient celestial mountain. I have been looking for the whereabouts of the deity map all these years, until I traced it to the Breeze Pavilion. Yi Futian nodded slightly. He knew about this when he looked into Taoist monk Mu's memory, carefully discerning the identity of Taoist monk Mu. Although the specifics could no longer be ascertained, it was true that this man had a deep obsession with alchemy. He also had a strong desire to seek the deity map and the ancient imperial celestial mountain. Taoist monk Mu waved his hand, and this part of the sea was immediately sealed off. He said to Yi Futian, Run Huangyi, please take out the deity map for a demonstration. Yi Futian nodded as he stretched out his hand and waved. Suddenly, the deity map was suspended in the air. The divine consciousness of Taoist monk Mu directly invaded inside the deity map, as a splendid picture immediately appeared in the air. In an area above the sea, many celestial mountains emerged. A ray of light shot out of Taoist monk Mu's eyes, and the deity map suddenly zoomed in. After a while, it seemed to have turned into an unusual treasure, covering the sky and the sun, much like an implement or a magical artifact. This surprised Yi Futian. He was a little hasty when he examined the deity map before, and had not had the time to study it carefully. Was this deity map this unusual? Buzz! At this moment, a flame of the great path appeared beneath the deity map. It was the green lotus of creation. However, even such a terrible divine fire could not inflict any signs of damage to the deity map to indicate that it was burned. On the contrary, the flames spread and flowed on the deity map, gradually spreading to the entire map. Boom! The violent sound roared from the divine fire, as the flame of the great path burning on the deity map. The map turned into something else with the help of the divine fire. Under the illumination of the divine fire, and as its light shone on the sea, a mountain-shaped fire appeared in the middle, as an endless flame of the great path gathered there, turning into a mountain. Yi Futian was quite surprised when he witnessed this sight. His heart palpitated slightly faster as his eyes beheld the magnificent spectacle in front of him. It was truly incredible. It seemed that what he had thought of the deity map before was far too simplistic. Deity map may not be just a map, but it may be the key to unlock the ancient imperial celestial mountain. Taoist monk Mu remarked to Yi Futian. So you had no plan to go back and work with the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion? Yi Futian asked. Depending on the situation. If I can't solve it by myself, I might. But if I can do it alone, why should I ask him for help? Although the treasures that I surrendered to him are very precious indeed, they are not worth mentioning compared to the ancient imperial celestial mountain, said Taoist monk Mu. Yi Futian looked deeply at the other man. This Taoist monk Mu was extremely cunning and ambitious. Although his strength was lacking, he was an expert at alchemy and concealment, which made up for the lack. He was definitely a powerful character. If it wasn't that he ran into Yi Futian by mistake, Taoist monk Mu had good odds in solving this mystery. It was a pity that this old guy ran into him. However, the more capable he found Taoist monk Mu to be, the happier Yi Futian was. This meant that he would be making greater contributions to the Ziwei segmentum. This kind of old monster was no gentle creature. He was a crafty trickster. Meaning the map is still a map, but the deity map itself may also be the key. No wonder the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion went through the trouble of shutting down the whole city to search and retrieve it. If it is just a map, duplicates can easily be made, Yi Futian whispered. If so, Li Qingfeng could act much more quietly, without turning it into such a big deal, so that everyone knew about it now. He didn't have a choice. Losing the deity map meant that he could not unlock the secrets of the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain. Precisely, said Taoist Mu. Then the flames of the Great Path and his divine consciousness dissipated as the deity map returned to how it looked before, floating in the air. Taoist monk Mu looked at Yi Futian and said, Run Huangyi, you can put it away now. Although there were some conflicts between us before, now that you are one of us, you don't have to be so formal. You can call me by my name. Yi Futian waved his hand to put away the deity map, addressing Taoist monk Mu at the same time. Taoist monk Mu thought about it for a moment, then said, Run Huangyi is the lord of Ziwei Segmentum, the palace lord of its imperial palace. Now that I have joined Ziwei Segmentum and become a member, I will address you as Palace Lord Yi. Very well. Yi Futian didn't say anything more and merely nodded. He said, You are an expert in disguise and concealment. Follow me to Jiui Celestial Mountain again. Yes, Palace Lord. Taoist monk Mu didn't ask any questions, but followed the order readily enough. He seemed to hit the ground running. The truth was that he had tried resisting before. But, as he was defeated soundly and agreed to submit, the only thing left for him to do was to put down his pride and do what he was supposed to do. Let's go. Yi Futian did not bother correcting him, as the two returned to Jiui Celestial Mountain. At Jiui Celestial Mountain, Yi Futian and Taoist monk Mu did not arrive at the same time. They were moving separately. At this time, Yi Futian appeared in Jiui City, but Taoist monk Mu had changed his identity. Yi Futian had instructed him to collect medicinal materials for alchemy on Yi Futian's behalf and befriend some alchemists. With Taoist monk Mu's ability, this was not a challenge. He knew that Yi Futian was preparing to form an army of alchemists. Once he found the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain, he would have the opportunity to make the Ziwei Segmentum the premier holy land for alchemy. Yi Futian had something else to do. He was standing on an ancient peak, and a middle-aged Ran Huang was standing not far away from him. He said, Ran Huangyi is looking for us? How long before Goddess Qiao gets here? Yi Futian asked. Shi Qiao should be arriving soon. Soon. The goddess has already entered Jiui Celestial Mountain, and it will not take her long to come to Jiui City. The other man responded via voice transmission. Very well, I'll wait for her here, Yi Futian replied. I understand. The man nodded, then turned to leave. Yi Futian proceeded to sit cross-legged and started to cultivate. After a while, a group of people came, and the person in the lead was beautiful beyond description. It was Shi Qiao, the goddess of West Imperial Palace. Yi Futian opened his eyes, then got up. Shi Qiao smiled brightly and said through voice transmission, You got it? Yi Futian glanced at Shi Qiao, but did not deny it. Instead, he asked via voice transmission, How did you know? Taoist monk Mu has traded with you before. This man is pretty clever. He probably wanted to use you to move the item outside undetected by others. Li Qingfeng was fooled by it, and he almost succeeded. Too bad he met you. Shi Qiao smiled. How is Taoist monk Mu now? Although Shi Qiao was not there, she seemed to have witnessed everything with her own eyes, and put the pieces together correctly. This future heir of the West Imperial Palace clearly had more than just talent. He decided to join the Ziwei Segmentum, Yi Futian replied. My compliments, said Shi Qiao. It seems that Ren Huangyi wants to gather a group of alchemy masters. If you ever find the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain, that's where I need Goddess Qiao's help, Yi Futian said bluntly. There are some deficiencies in the deity map, and I'm guessing it's probably because of some historical or geographical changes. I need every map of the West Sea domain from each generation. The more detailed, the better. The West Imperial Palace was regarded as one of the oldest principalities in the West Sea domain. If anyone could come up with every version of the map depicting the West Sea domain over the years, the West Imperial Palace would definitely be one of them. These items should be kept in their archives. Shi Qiyao looked at Yi Futian with those beautiful eyes of hers and nodded earnestly. I will try my best. If Ren Huangyi believes in me, why not go to the West Imperial Palace in person, and we can solve the secret of the deity map together? Chapter 25-27, Made Public. Chapter 25-27, Made Public. Yi Futian was somewhat hesitant. He looked into Shi Qiao's eyes. She had a calm expression, and her smile was comforting. The West Imperial Palace was the overlord of the West Sea domain. Its history spanned for decades, and its teachings were unfathomable. Yi Futian speculated that the West Imperial Palace was stronger than the West Sea Domain Chief's manor. Moreover, its ability most likely far surpassed that of the West Domain Chief's manor. Chief Shihai aimed to weaken West Imperial Palace's status, but in reality, his goal would probably remain a dream. The current ancient god clan would not simply reveal all their trump cards to others. If Yi Futian entered West Imperial Palace, and the latter planned to harm him, he would most likely not be able to escape even with his proficiency in celerity. He had faith in Shi Qiyao, but he did not trust the cultivators in the West Imperial Palace entirely. Even if Shi Qiyao did not have any ill intention towards him, what would happen if other elders in West Imperial Palace had different ideas? The consequences might be fatal. After all, the West Imperial Palace was still part of the forces of the Divine Prefecture. Besides that, Yi Futian carried the teachings of a few great emperors with him. He couldn't be sure that everyone in the West Imperial Palace had no intention of harming him. Yi Futian said, I appreciate Goddess Qiao's offer, but I will politely decline. Naturally, I have faith in you. That's why I'm willing to send a copy of the deity map to the West Imperial Palace. You can bring the copy back to the palace and use it to locate the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain. I still have other matters to attend to in Jiui City, so I will not follow you back to the palace. Now his safety was not just about himself. It affected the entire Ziwei segmentum. If anything happened to him, the Ziwei segmentum would be crushed. All his loved ones and friends would face annihilation. This was something he would not accept. Hence, his safety was his priority all the time. Shi Qiao was clever, so she naturally understood Yi Futian's way of thinking. She could also understand where he was coming from. She smiled and said, All right, I will also accompany Ren Huangyi and remain in Jiui City. If you need any assistance, I may be able to lend a hand. I will order the deity map to be sent to the West Imperial Palace. Once they figure out the location of the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain, we will then head over there together. Many thanks, Goddess Qiyao, Yi Futian said. Since we are allies, this is not just your affair. It is also the affair of the West Imperial Palace, replied Shi Qiao with a smile. Yi Futian did not elaborate further. He said, I will make a copy of the deity map. Goddess Qiyao, please wait a moment. All right, replied Shi Qiao as she nodded. Yi Futian's figure immediately disappeared from where he stood. The deity map itself was a key. It did not matter even if he handed over the copy of the deity map to West Imperial Palace. Since both sides had become allies, this should be done. He also needed to rely on West Imperial Palace to locate the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain. Shi Qiao waited quietly as she stood on the mountain peak. Behind her, an elder said, It seems that he still does not trust you. If you were in his shoes, could you trust me? Shi Qiao responded with a smile. The cultivation world is full of intrigue and deceit. The hearts of men are unpredictable. He has the teachings of so many great emperors. Countless people in the Divine Prefecture wish to get him, with whatever means necessary. The fate of the Ziwei segmentum rests on his shoulders. How can he possibly put himself at risk? The elder nodded his head and said, What you say is also true. With his talent, the inheritances and treasures he possesses, as well as the deity map now, even I would covet what he has. It is normal for him not to be trusting of others. All men are greedy, Shi Qiao said. I am also the same. However, Rather than coveting his present, I am more interested in his future. Rather than take all he has from him, why not be friends and help him grow? The elder nodded in agreement. Such foresight was something ordinary people did not have. There was naturally a reason why Shi Qiyao was chosen as an heir of the ancient god clan. Not long after, Yi Futian returned. He made a copy of the deity map by carving it on a jade slip. He passed it to Shi Qiyao and said, "Goddess Qiyao, you'd better send it to West Imperial Palace with haste. I am worried that there will be changes to the current situation if we wait too long." "All right," responded Shi Qiyao as she nodded her head. She handed it over to a person behind her. Then, a few of them immediately took to the skies and left. "Run Huangyi, why don't we walk around and see whether we can find anything good?" Shi Qiyao invited Yi Futian. "Sure," replied Yi Futian as he nodded. The two of them walked together and headed over towards the trade market in Jiui City. For the next few days, Yi Futian searched for things he needed in Jiui City. They were primarily for alchemy purposes. As for other treasures, he mostly had no interest in them. After all, having the teachings of several great emperors, few techniques could catch his eye. They would also not appear in Jiui City. Actually, Jiui City was not as peaceful as it appeared to be on the surface. Many cultivators from the West Sea Domain and other regions keenly observed Jiui City and the Breeze Pavilion. The Breeze Pavilion had been under a lot of pressure recently. At the moment, many cultivators were gathered at a gazebo in the Breeze Pavilion. Li Qingfeng was there, and the rest of the cultivators present all had strong auras. They were mysterious. "Pavilion Master, when do you plan to hand the thing over to us?" said one of them. His tone was unfriendly and threatening. The others also unleashed their might to pressure Li Qingfeng. Li Qingfeng had an indifferent expression. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Give me 3 days. I will give everyone what you want in 3 days." "All right. If that's the case, we'll wait for another 3 days." After saying this, the speaker left the gazebo. With a flash, the others also disappeared. They moved swiftly, and one could not trace where they went. Li Qingfeng stood in the gazebo with a cold look on his face. He gazed into the distance. Several cultivators entered the gazebo and bowed towards him. "Do you have any news from him?" Li Qingfeng asked. "Pavilion Master, we have not received any word from him," replied one of them. Li Qingfeng's expression turned even uglier. For the past few days, he had been waiting for updates from Taoist monk Mu. However, he had not heard from Taoist monk Mu again after letting the other party go last time. It was as though Taoist monk Mu had gone missing. A few days had passed. There should have been enough time for Taoist monk Mu to come and meet Li Qingfeng after retrieving the deity map. Yet he had not done so. Clearly, Taoist monk Mu intended to pocket the deity map without sharing it with anyone. "We'll wait a while longer," snorted Li Qingfeng. His facial expression was ugly beyond comparison. If Taoist monk Mu planned to decipher the secret of the deity map alone, then Li Qingfeng would make sure that no one could obtain it in the end. 3 days later, shocking news spread from Jiui City. A duplicate of the deity map would be auctioned off by the Breeze Pavilion. At the same time, rumors were saying that the real deity map had been stolen by Taoist monk Mu. As soon as this news got out, the entire Jiui City was shaken. This was the first time the Breeze Pavilion openly admitted to the existence of the deity map. Moreover, they were going to reveal it to the public. Since Taoist monk Mu stole the real deity map, they only had a copy now that recorded the location of the celestial mountain. Countless cultivators rushed over to Jiui City. Almost all of the more powerful alchemy masters of the West Sea Domain had gathered here. It was a grand occasion. The existence of the deity map was related to great emperor-level alchemy teachings. One could imagine how attractive this was for alchemy masters. In the present day, there were almost no top-tier alchemy grandmasters in the Divine Prefecture anymore. Yi Futian and Shi Qiyao received this news very quickly. However, this was not a surprise for Yi Futian. He had quickly sought out Shi Qiyao and copied the deity map for her to send back to West Imperial Palace, because he was worried that such an incident would occur. Aside from the deity map itself being the key to opening the celestial mountain, it was also a map. If he could copy this map, Li Qingfeng could certainly do so as well. If Li Qingfeng was under pressure and could not find Taoist monk Mu, it was possible that he would reveal the map to the public. Now things played out the way Yi Futian expected. Fortunately, the accurate deity map was still in his possession. Should we head over to the Breeze Pavilion and take a look? Shi Qiao asked Yi Futian. Right now the deity map was about to be auctioned off. All the cultivators in Jiui City seemed to be rushing towards the Breeze Pavilion. Looking over there from where they stood, they could see crowds of people swarming the streets. At a glance, the streets from here to the Breeze Pavilion were filled with cultivators. There were also many incredible renhuangs in the sky. It is meaningless, Yi Futian commented. Since Li Qingfeng decided to make it public, he certainly plans to maximize the benefits he can obtain from it. Most likely, more than one copy of the deity map will be auctioned off. Indeed, said Shi Qiao as she nodded. His auctioning off one copy was no different from him exposing the map to the public. There was no way that anyone could keep it a secret. Auctioning off multiple copies would lead to the same result. If that was the case, why wouldn't he maximize his profits? For the top forces in the shadows, they certainly did not need to obtain the deity map through the auctions. Li Qingfeng might use them to decipher the location on the deity map together. Yi Futian continued. Hence, we need to make haste. Shi Qiao nodded her head slightly and said, I have sent word back and asked them to pick up the pace. On West Imperial Palace's side, they have found many maps of the West Sea domain from different eras. They had already locked on a few targets, so the results should soon be out. All right, I hope that we can make it before everyone else, said Yi Futian as he nodded his head slightly. Although he held the real deity map and possessed the key to opening the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain, the cultivators from various forces would all make their way over if the location was made public. Once he opened it, the various cultivators would swoop in to snatch the treasures from him. He might end up delivering the spoils into the hands of others. Just as Yi Futian speculated, while a copy of the deity map was being auctioned in the Breeze Pavilion, at the same time in a courtyard of the Breeze Pavilion, many cultivators from the top forces were here. They had all obtained a copy of the deity map. Li Qingfeng looked at them and said, Everyone, once Taoist monk Mu knows about this, he will certainly attempt to decipher the map as soon as possible. Until now, the forces of West Imperial Palace have not come looking for me yet. I suspect that Taoist monk Mu might have sought the aid of West Imperial Palace. If that is the case, it might not be long before they decipher the location on the deity map. At such a critical junction, I hope that all of you will put aside your agendas, work together, and use our various resources to decipher the map's secrets. Only then can we find the location of the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain before Taoist monk Mu, and head over to keep watch. That way, no matter who Taoist monk Mu is working with, he can only dream about keeping the secret of the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain to himself. If you knew that it would end up like this, what have you been doing all this while? Someone asked coldly. Now is not the time to complain. What Li Qingfeng said is right. Let's work together. Since West Imperial Palace did not come, I also speculate that Taoist monk Mu might have joined forces with them, said an elder. West Imperial Palace was the overlord of the West Sea domain. They had more favorable resources and support. The rest of them had to unite. Chapter 25-28, Celestial Mountain Under the Sea. Chapter 25-28, Celestial Mountain Under the Sea. Shi Qiao quickly caught wind of what Li Qingfeng did in Jiui City. Even though Jiui City was not under the jurisdiction of West Imperial Palace, the palace had spies in the city. Shi Qiao happened to be with Yi Futian right now, so she shared the news with him immediately. Shi Qiao said, Things played out as you predicted. While copies of the deity maps were being auctioned off at high prices, Li Qingfeng revealed another copy of the map directly to all the top forces internally. They planned to join forces to decipher the location of the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain. If those forces worked together, they might decipher the map faster than West Imperial Palace. Yi Futian was not surprised by this news. If he were Li Qingfeng, he would also choose to do so after failing to get any reply from Taoist monk Mu. Yi Futian replied. I have to trouble the cultivators of West Imperial Palace to work harder. Li Qingfeng and the others do not have the real deity map. But if they identify the location, things will become much harder for us. There will be a battle over the treasures. If we can decipher the location before them, then we can seize the teachings right away. I have urged my men a few times. They should be reaching a breakthrough soon, Shi Qiao said. Yi Futian nodded and said no more. In the following days, the entire Jui city was filled with all kinds of news about the deity map. Moreover, many duplicates of the deity map were circulated and made known to the public. The forces who got the copies of the deity map via auction knew that with their power alone, it was impossible for them to seize the treasures hidden in the ancient imperial celestial mountain. Therefore, they traded their copies of the deity map with others in secret and created a commotion. Their goal was to fish for any available profit in troubled waters. As a result, copies of the deity map became readily available in Jui City. The copies were spread around quickly, and in the end, almost everyone had a copy of the map. However, even though many people had the map, ordinary forces couldn't decipher the exact location of the ancient imperial celestial mountain. The two key forces competing were West Imperial Palace and Li Qingfeng and his allies. The latter was formed from many forces. The former was the overlord of the West Sea domain. Although they were not in direct conflict, the race was on behind the scenes. They were competing to see who could decipher the deity map first. Today on the mountain peak, Shi Qiao suddenly opened her eyes. She looked at Yi Futian, who was sitting cross-legged nearby and cultivating quietly. Ren Huangyi, Shi Qiao yelled over transmitted thoughts. Yi Futian opened his eyes and looked at her. He understood what she wanted to say with just a glance. Yi Futian immediately got up, and the two of them took to the skies. They set off without any hesitation. Then silhouettes flew up one after another and followed them. After their group left, cultivators kept traversing the sky from different directions around Jui City and pursuing them at extremely high speeds. The people in front were cultivators of West Imperial Palace. The people behind were from the top forces who arrived in Jui City. It was obvious that before this, some forces already had their eyes on Shi Qiao. Ren Huangyi, I'll share the location with you. You head there first. Shi Qiao told Yi Futian through transmitted thoughts. There are people tailing us. You can get rid of them with your speed. Many of my cultivators are making their way over from West Imperial Palace. They might reach there before you. Please meet up with them after you arrive. I'll bring Goddess Qiao along with me, Yi Futian said. With a flash, he came up beside Shi Qiao. He grabbed her arm and said, Bringing you along will slow down my celerity by a little, but we should still be fast enough to get rid of these people. The only downside is we will ditch your men here as well. That's fine, Shi Qiao replied. As soon as she gave consent, their bodies disappeared from their original spots right away. Not long after Yi Futian and Shi Qiao left Jui City, in the Breeze Pavilion, Li Qingfeng and the others stood up from their seats frantically. Their eyes glittered with excitement as they stared at a point on the map. We have deciphered it, announced Li Qingfeng. The reason why Li Qifeng and the top forces could decipher the location so fast was not because their alliances had better resources than West Imperial Palace. Instead, it was because Li Qingfeng had been studying the deity map, even before it was made known to others. He had already made great progress in searching for the exact location, corresponding to the mark labeled on the map. If the deity map had not been stolen, Li Qingfeng would have deciphered the location sooner or later. However, things had escalated to where they were now. Therefore, with Li Qingfeng's expertise and the aid of the various top forces, their alliance could unravel the secret so quickly. Let's go! One by one, the cultivators took to the sky and traversed across space. Their speed was astonishing. Like shadows flashing past, they disappeared in an instant. Countless people in Jui City noticed that silhouettes took to the sky and left the Breeze Pavilion. The cultivators transformed into beams of flowing light. Such fast speed, exclaimed someone. Who are they? And where are they heading? Someone asked. Could it be related to the deity map? The crowd in Jui City felt their hearts tremble in excitement. Had the secret of the deity map been deciphered? Li Qifeng might have found the location labeled on the deity map. That might be why he took to the sky and left in a hurry. On the side of a mountain path, Taoist monk Mu raised his head and glanced in the direction where Li Qifeng and his allies had headed. Then he packed up his stall and moved up the mountain path. At the same time, he took out an item. His will seeped into it, and he recorded a message in the item. It was a treasure used for communication. Taoist monk Mu utilized it to keep in touch with Yi Futian. He told Yi Futian what had happened here, and asked him to be on his guard. Taoist monk Mu stole the deity map, and searched for the ancient imperial celestial mountain for years. Unfortunately, he would most likely miss out on the adventure this time. However, he was fine with it. Currently, Yi Futian was working with West Imperial Palace. It would be sufficient as long as Yi Futian could achieve his goal. After that, Yi Futian would surely help Taoist monk Mu to improve his alchemy skill. Right now, Taoist monk Mu also had his own mission to carry out. Step by step, he advanced upwards following the mountain path. His speed was not fast. It took a while before he arrived at the Breeze Pavilion. The Breeze Pavilion was very lively at the moment. Everyone broke into chatter. Many people looked far into the distance. They were still immersed in awe after the pavilion master left. They hoped that he would succeed. However, it was rather difficult. Voices of discussion rose from all around. Taoist monk Mu quietly listened to all of this. He then looked up at the sky and mumbled, "It is almost time." Li Qingfeng's group had already left for some time. They couldn't rush back. It would cause Li Qingfeng despair if he had to return, and waste the time his group had already spent on the road. They were now heading over to intercept the other groups from seizing the treasures of the ancient imperial celestial mountain. Rumble. A terrifying pressure enveloped the Breeze Pavilion. Taoist monk Mu walked step by step towards the pavilion. In an instant, the various cultivators in the pavilion felt their hearts tremble. They retracted their gazes and looked towards the figure, who was slowly walking towards them. It was Taoist monk Mu. Li Qingfeng took everything I owned. I can only seek the Breeze Pavilion for reimbursement. Apologies for the offense, said Taoist monk Mu. This time, he was taking things by force. How could he let such an opportunity slip past him? This time he would pillage the Breeze Pavilion clean. In a corner of the vast and endless West Sea, there were many islands. All the islands were barren, and had no signs of humans ever landing on them. The worldly spiritual chi in this area seemed to be missing, and was extremely thin. It was extremely unsuitable for cultivation. Even demonic beasts of the sea did not want to make their homes around this area. At that moment, a group of people arrived in this region. Their spiritual wills enveloped the domain, but they still could not detect anything out of the ordinary. These early birds were cultivators from West Imperial Palace. They opened up the final map, and then glanced around at the surrounding region. The celestial mountain should be in this part of the sea. There was no error with their deduction. It was just that this region appeared too normal, and appeared to be just a little corner of the endless West Sea. Few people would venture to this location. At that moment, another two silhouettes suddenly descended upon the area. This caused the crowd's expressions to turn slightly stern. However, when they made out who had arrived, they retracted their auras. "Qiao," someone called out. The two people who had arrived were Yi Futian and Qiao. Yi Futian glanced around at the surroundings. His spiritual will enveloped this part of the sea. A strange look flashed past in his eyes as he said, "This area actually appears so normal. The worldly spiritual chi in this area is extremely thin, and there are no traces of humans around. No wonder no one noticed this place." Was this the location marked on the deity map? He glanced at Qiao. She nodded slightly at him. Yi Futian did not say any more. He took out the true deity map, and his spiritual will seeped into it. The deity map instantly emitted a bright light, and a projection of a region of the sea appeared. Yi Futian shifted his thoughts, and the deity map immediately expanded frenziedly. It blocked out the sun, and covered this part of the sea. Qiao looked up at the projection of the sea shown on the deity map, as her heart trembled slightly. This projection actually matched the region of the sea before their eyes. The only difference was that the islands on the map were like enchanted islands. but they appeared extremely ordinary in reality. Buzz. Beneath the deity map, flames of the way emerged. In an instant, the deity map was lit by a frightening divine halo of flame. It was as though the map was made of flame. Beams of divine light shone down and pointed towards the surrounding islands. The light covered the sea directly. Futian's group quietly watched as this miraculous scene played out. The sea was boiling. The divine flames released from the deity map landed on the surrounding islands and set them ablaze. Even some islands that had been lost to the passage of time also appeared as islands of flame. A frightening sizzling sound could be heard as the seawater boiled. This part of the sea evaporated. Beneath the dried-up sea, countless patterns of flame lit up and resonated with the deity map in the sky. As the patterns appeared, a seal was unlocked in this part of the sea, with unfathomable depth. An intense rumble could be heard, and the sea parted in the middle. Deity mist appeared. An extremely thick worldly spiritual chi spread outwards, emanating from the bottom of the sea. A celestial mountain appeared at the bottom of the dried-up sea, causing the surrounding sea to roar violently. No wonder the worldly spiritual chi here was so thin. It had been completely consumed. Futian thought to himself when he saw this scene. Their hearts were beating fast. A celestial mountain was sealed within this part of the sea. How powerful was the person who managed to do this? As the deity mist spread out, the celestial mountain emerged from the sea. It grew larger, as though what had appeared before was merely the tip of the celestial mountain. Futian and the others retreated upwards. The mountain continued to rise. From under the sea, a celestial mountain rose up. Chapter 25-29. The Deity Island and the Divine Matrix. Chapter 25-29. The Deity Island and the Divine Matrix. There was a boundless deity mist. The celestial mountain rose from the sea, showed up above the sea, and transformed into a deity island. It was a giant deity island, with their bodies suspended over it. Futian and others could feel the vast worldly spiritual chi enveloping the celestial mountain, which they were breathing greedily. They took a step forward one after another, ready to go onto the celestial mountain to find the relics of the ancient emperor. Hold up! A voice came, leaving them dumbstruck. They looked back at Qiao. Qiao, now that the celestial mountain showed up, we should hurry up, said an old man. Everyone, stay at the periphery of the celestial mountain. Deploy the raindrop divine matrix to isolate the mountain from the outside world, said Qiao. Her order puzzled the practitioners from the West Imperial Palace. They all looked at her with confused faces. At such a timing, everyone wanted to go onto the celestial mountain to find the relics of the ancient emperor. It was a fantastic opportunity. If they stayed here to deploy the raindrop divine matrix, who would go onto the celestial mountain? I've got news from Jui City. Many people set off from the Breeze Pavilion. They should have decoded the address, too. And we'll find this place very soon. Ren Huangyi is good at decoding relics. He and I will go and look for the deity's traces. You stay here to deploy the raindrop divine matrix. Don't let anyone disturb us, added Qiao. Many people remained perplexed. They were all practitioners from the West Imperial Palace, and Qiao was the goddess of the West Imperial Palace. However, she was going to send Futian to decode the relics. Although she would go with him, everyone knew she was not a rival for Futian. They were not even comparable in terms of strength, so it meant the relics on the celestial mountain were basically Futian's. Why was she helping an outsider? The inheritance of the Elixir Emperor could be on the celestial mountain. It was exactly what the divine prefecture needed. If the West Imperial Palace could get it, they would grow more powerful. She should not give up such a great opportunity to a stranger, no matter what reason she had. And they would deploy a formation to help Futian? That did not make any sense. Qiao, I'm afraid I disagree. We will go to look for the relics right now, said an awe-inspiring middle-aged man in the tone of a senior. It was Qiao's uncle. Qiao was the goddess, but her position in the family hierarchy was not high. Many seniors had come with her this time. I am not discussing with you, uncle. As the goddess, I order you to deploy the raindrop divine matrix. An unusual light showed up in Qiao's eyes. which looked the same as the West Emperor's eyes. She glanced over the powerhouses of the West Imperial Palace. He is the enemy of the Divine Prefecture. How dare you collaborate with him so brazenly? Shi Qiao's uncle was still very reluctant to follow her order. Start now. Otherwise, all of you will be punished according to the rules of the clan after we go back to the Imperial Palace, shouted Shi Qiao, pushy and awe-inspiring. She did not even let her uncle finish speaking. That gentle and pretty woman always wearing a smile on her face was iron-willed, tough, awe-inspiring and bossy at the moment. She did not allow any questions for her order. Do as she ordered, said the old man behind Shi Qiao. Fine, responded Shi Qiao's uncle, gnashing his teeth. The others also nodded and started to work. Some of them trusted Shi Qiao, but many people were following her order reluctantly. She was the most powerful heir to the West Emperor, the goddess chosen by the West Imperial Palace. Even seniors would have to fulfill her order. The Lord of the West Imperial Palace once announced that Shi Qiao could order anyone in the clan except him, that anyone that refused to follow her order would be regarded as a traitor of the West Imperial Palace. All of his powers would be removed according to the rules of the clan. No one knew why that old man trusted and spoiled Shi Qiao so much despite her young age. When all that had been done, Shi Qiao said to Yi Futian, "Come on. Let's go on to the Celestial Mountain." Yi Futian had been watching the whole time. It all happened in a very short while. Shi Qiao's brief but powerful speech showed him the other side of hers, and left him in shock too. The successor that the ancient god clan had chosen was quite sophisticated. He could hardly believe it was the same gentle and pretty woman he knew that had acted so toughly. He was right. That move will offend many forces, said Yi Futian. He was the common enemy of the Divine Prefecture. Shi Qiao had made it clear that she would not help him explicitly. However, what she did contradicted what she said. She told the practitioners of the West Imperial Palace to deploy the Raindrop Divine Matrix to help him. We don't have much time. Other forces are already on their way. We have to be quick, Shi Qiao said. And I am not just helping you. Don't forget we are allies. I have a share too. Yi Futian looked at Shi Qiao, who was next to him. She was smiling with her eyes as gentle as water. It was the old her again. Stop thinking about those people. What's urgent now is find the ancient emperor's relics on the Celestial Mountain, and take them away as quickly as we can, added Shi Qiao. Yi Futian gave her a nod. He looked at the Celestial Mountain below them, while releasing his divine consciousness to shroud the deity island. The breeze pavilion was surprisingly fast, so they had to make it quick indeed. Find what he wanted as fast as he could, and then leave. As long as he could get what he wanted, there would be no more concerns, because no one was fast enough to catch up with him, and he would go as far as he could. The Celestial Mountain was covered with verdant ancient trees, full of the energy of life. Despite having most of it in the sea, it was still giving off a strong vibe full of life, and being nourished by the worldly spiritual qi. These herbs and trees all have a soul. They are celestial herbs and trees, very precious, said Yi Futian in a low voice, looking at the plants on the deity island. They were all precious medicinal materials rarely seen in the outer realms. They were the real treasures. However, they were everywhere on the Celestial Mountain. The deity island was a treasure trove itself. 9 spirits, herbs, trees of life, celestial vines. Looking down, Shi Qiao glanced over with her divine consciousness and recognized many rare herbs and trees. An exotic light flashed across her pretty eyes. If she could take some of those away, she would own a treasure trove full of resources she could use to refine elixirs. Don't touch anything yet. We still need to find the relics of the ancient emperor first. Yi Futian restrained his greediness. It was not time yet. If they touched anything here and failed to find the relics, as a result they would regret it a lot. Have you found anything? Asked Shi Qiao. Her divine consciousness covered every inch of the Celestial Mountain, but she found nothing. There was nothing special. No. Yi Futian shook his head. Just like Shi Qiao, his divine consciousness shrouded the whole Celestial Mountain, but he only saw the precious plants over the mountain. There are only plenty of precious spirit herbs and trees on the legendary deity island, but no inheritance of the ancient emperor? An assumption entered his mind. Everything here is precious and priceless. But if that was all, he would still feel disappointed. He wanted more than that. Both of them were searching using their divine consciousness. Shi Qiao frowned. There are always many rumors about this deity island. But maybe it's just where the successors to the great emperor planted medicinal herbs? Maybe there is no inheritance at all. Next to her, Yi Futian suddenly put on a bizarre look. His eyes seemed to be able to look beyond the emptiness and see the truth. He seemed to detect something. Shi Qiao looked down, and her eyes changed too. They looked like the eyes of the West Emperor. However, she detected nothing. She still did not see anything special. Elixirs. Yi Futian said one word. Shi Qiao looked at him. Looking at the celestial mountain down there, Yi Futian said, "The herbs and trees on the celestial mountain are all nourished by elixirs. Top alchemy masters used to cultivate on this island. They refined elixirs and used them to nourish the medicinal herbs here. Some of the medicinal herbs were even transformed from their elixirs." "Reverse nurturing," said Shi Qiao in a low voice. "I heard that some elixirs should go through ordeals called elixir tribulation after being refined. Such elixirs have a soul. Some special elixirs can be used to cultivate precious herbs, thus giving them the tribulation attribute. In this way, more high-grade elixirs will be refined." "Soul," Yi Futian repeated the word. He was still looking down and checking out every inch of the mountain. Then he closed his eyes and entered a serene status, reciting the Buddhist sutra to himself. A divine light shrouded Yi Futian's body like the light of Buddha. Shi Qiao put on a shocked look. Standing next to Yi Futian, she also felt a serenity at the bottom of her heart, as if she would be plunged into that status as well. At that moment, Yi Futian did not seem to exist. The celestial mountain was the only thing in his world. He was feeling every tree, every herb, and every leaf on it. He was communicating with their souls. Buzz! Yi Futian suddenly disappeared, which struck Shi Qiao dumb. She looked down and saw him show up somewhere on the deity island, and stand there in silence. It was an opening where he was standing. There were only a few herbs in front of him. However, those unremarkable herbs were growing on the celestial mountain, with other celestial herbs and divine trees. And around them, there were no other plants. Shi Qiao landed there too. She darted an odd look at Yi Futian and those herbs. Those herbs would doubtless be neglected on the celestial mountain, because they had nothing special. Visitors of the mountain could even step on them unintentionally. But somehow, Yi Futian chose here to land and was staring at them. She did not know why, but she stood there quietly without posing any questions. Yi Futian was stronger than she was. He must have his reason to do that. She would not have come here with him in the first place if she did not trust him. At this moment, beyond the deity island, a big group of powerful cultivators with dreadful auras flew across the air over the sea. Those were exactly the powerhouses from Jui City. "We came too late." Looking ahead, they supposed it was not late after all. The raindrop divine matrix. It's the West Imperial Palace indeed. Some of them saw a rain curtain instead of the deity island in front of them. That area was full of raindrops, and none of them had the nerve to rush into that world. The falling raindrops had extremely edgy energy in them, as if they were the sharpest blades in the world. It was the raindrop divine matrix deployed by the West Imperial Palace. Chapter 2530, Looted and Left. Chapter 2530, Looted and Left. The raindrop divine matrix was an important killing formation of the West Imperial Palace. It was very powerful. Those powerhouses were all hesitating after arrival. They did not have the nerve to rush in recklessly. The celestial mountain of the ancient emperor is an inheritance from ancient times. Does the West Imperial Palace intend to have it to all yourselves by locking this place down? Said one of the powerful cultivators in a reproaching tone. His voice carried across the sea. However, there was no response from the raindrop divine matrix. The rain kept falling. It was the rain of killing. The West Sea domain was the territory of the West Imperial Palace. Even though there was a domain chief's manor, the West Imperial Palace remained the most powerful force. The historical and cultural heritage of the ancient god clan was not something the domain chief's manor could compete with. Bang! They knew talking would not help. Exerting the powerful force of the great path of destruction, they launched attacks against the Raindrop Divine Matrix. However, the attacks of the great path were frustrated and cracked as soon as they got into the Raindrop Divine Matrix. Who is here leading the West Imperial Palace? An intimidating voice spoke at this moment. A formidable thrusting thunder struck across the air and turned into a divine light of thunder punishment with the dreadful force of the divine retribution. It was suddenly very dark everywhere. Over the sea, a destructive disaster seemed to be about to occur. Many powerhouses looked up at the sky. It was a strong cultivator from the Yuanshi Palace of the Yuanshi domain, a force of the ancient god clan that came to visit the West Sea domain. Several forces of the ancient god clan showed up one after another in different directions. They surrounded the Raindrop Divine Matrix with a dreadful might powerful enough to destroy the world. Except for the Donghuang Imperial Palace, the ancient god clan was the most powerful force in the Divine Prefecture. Forces as powerful as they were might be more eager for top alchemy methods and elixirs than for some inheritances of the great emperor. After all, the ancient god clan already had the most suitable emperor-level inheritances for themselves. And the way of alchemy might make them go farther and become the #1 force below the Donghuang Imperial Palace. There were no top alchemy forces in the Divine Prefecture at the moment, but there were top forging forces. The Tianyan city located in the Tianyan domain was also a force of the ancient god clan. They were in an unshakable paramount position in the Divine Prefecture. The lord of the Tianyan city was a very pushy and bossy man. He once had the Heavenly Mandate Academy raised by lifting a hand of his. By then, the legendary inheritance of the Elixir Emperor from ancient times had shown up. Of course, he would compete for it. Again, no response came from the Raindrop Divine Matrix. Well, we won't show any mercy then. A cold voice came from the sky again. The force of divine retribution descended into the Divine Matrix. The other powerhouses also acted, launching attacks against the Raindrop Divine Matrix, deployed by their peers from the West Imperial Palace, to whom they were overwhelmingly superior in number. Above the celestial mountain, rich worldly spiritual chi shrouded the entire island. Despite the countless celestial herbs and divine trees there, Futian was sitting cross-legged in front of a few leaves of grass. Shi Qiao was standing behind, not far away from him. She did not want to disturb him. Futian proved his ability to decode relics a long time ago. He could be said to be a relic killer, and she was inferior to him in all aspects. Therefore, Shi Qiao certainly did not think she could find out the secret of the celestial mountain before he did. She knew what she could achieve and what she could not. She knew herself well, and she also knew Futian well. So, she decided to be simply an onlooker, and she ordered her men to deploy the Divine Matrix so that no one would disturb Futian. That would win him some time. He had a good chance to disclose the mystery of the celestial mountain before powerful cultivators from the outer realms intruded into here. With his eyes closed, Futian was in ultimate serenity. He was 100% focused. He perceived the stirring of the grass in a gentle breeze. Those leaves of grass seemed very fragile. It was as if they were just some weeds. However, Futian had sensed earlier that those grass leaves were the ones with the most powerful soul on the celestial mountain. If he had not been so sensitive or entered the state of meditative consciousness through the Buddhist doctrine, he would not have even perceived the soul. Besides, there were no other plants around the grasses, as if this was their territory, and nothing had the nerve to compete against them. They were like kings in solitude. That made Futian wonder, is it really just grass? In a state in which he totally forgot himself, Futian was feeling the grass, trying to connect to the soul. However, except for a mysterious feeling, he had no finding at all. The grass leaves were stirring quietly in the breeze, as if they were just growing here like other plants. And there was nothing unusual. He used his perception, the divine consciousness and eyes, but he still could not detect anything unusual. However, Futian did not believe he had made a mistake. The more so, the more extraordinary those grass leaves could be. Futian did not give up. An aura of the great way spread from his body and toward the grass, trying to merge with them. But it still did not work. Yi Futian could sense the existence of that soul, but he vaguely felt it had not been completely awake yet, that it was still in sleep, and he was supposed to wake it up. The branches and leaves of an ancient tree showed up on the ground and extended to the grass. Yi Futian seemed to have transformed into a tree, and he was growing with it. Soon the tree took root. Its new branches and leaves surrounded the grass, as if they had turned into one. The aura of life and the will of the Great Way kept flowing into them to nourish them and help them grow. The ancient tree of the world could hold anything in the world. He wanted to try whether that could work. What a wonderful aura! Shi Qiao sensed the aura in Yi Futian. The force of the Great Way was incredibly flawless. In the outer realms, the raindrop divine matrix was shaken. The battle in the air seemed to have affected it. Shi Qiao frowned. It seemed the enemy was attacking fiercely. She looked up at the sky, thinking it would not take long for the enemy to crack the raindrop divine matrix. Yi Futian would not be able to stay in such a state if he was disturbed. Then all of the efforts they had made would be wasted. Stall them, said Shi Qiao to the air, looking up. She knew the powerful cultivators of the West Imperial Palace could hear her and would try to buy Yi Futian more time. Those grass leaves were wreathed in some celestial lights soon. They seemed to be growing. Green luminous dots blossomed, and the grass leaves were growing taller and bigger. That's a powerful soul. Even Shi Qiao perceived it at the moment. The growing grass leaves seemed psychic. They had a powerful soul, and Yi Futian was trying to wake the soul up. Could the herb even have intelligence? The light of Buddha was shining vaguely on Yi Futian, who was reciting the Buddhist sutra. The Sanskrit recital lingered in the air. The sound of it made Shi Qiao feel like everything was growing, as if the earth was waking up, and everything was full of life. The grass leaves kept stirring. As they grew taller, it seemed easier for the wind to break them, but that was not the case. Lights sparkled. Shi Qiao sensed that soul had grown more powerful. The lights were even gathering, and it seemed to be a human that they were turning into. Oh right, Shi Qiao was stirred. She realized Yi Futian had found the right thing indeed. Those grass leaves were turning into a human. What did that mean? Legend has it that the ancient emperor transformed into an elixir after his collapse, and was taken away by his inheritor. Shi Qiao heard a voice in her mind. Could that be? She looked at Yi Futian with her pretty eyes and saw him staying still. The human shadow was taking shape. It looked like a celestial being that was pleasing to the eyes. A mere glance at him would give people a comfortable feeling. The shadow showed up on the grass, seemingly looking at Yi Futian. Senior, nice to meet you. My name is Yi Futian, said Yi Futian with his eyes open, bowing to the shadow. What a surprise! Someone woke up the wisp of will I left in the world, murmured the shadow. Then he asked, what year is it? 10,000th year, and a bit of the divine prefecture calendar, answered Yi Futian. He supposed the shadow knew nothing about the calendar. The divine prefecture calendar. Where is the divine prefecture? Said the shadow in a low voice. It let out a sigh. 10,000th year, and a bit of the divine prefecture calendar. I suppose my successor is already dead. Yi Futian did not say anything. He would not know, but he supposed it was true. If the legend was actually what happened, that the celestial mountain had been looted, no treasures would be left. Maybe the only thing that survived was a medicine garden, which was the whole mountain, and the later generations sealed it up here. However, Yi Futian woke up the wisp of will of the ancient emperor this day. Are you also an alchemy master? The shadow asked Yi Futian. Yep. Yi Futian nodded. Well, now that you woke me up, you must have something extraordinary. The voice came from the shadow again. Then it turned into numerous luminous dots and flew to Yi Futian, and then into his brow chakra. Shi Qiao was quite emotional to see all that. The ancient imperial celestial mountain was nothing similar to the one she had imagined. There were no divine treasures, no treasure troves or valuable elixir recipes or gorgeous alchemy methods. The only thing here was grass. However, in those grass leaves remained the wisp of will of the ancient emperor. If it were not Yi Futian here, would it have been woken up? Soon the luminous dots disappeared. Those grasses withered quickly. Even the rare herbs over the whole celestial mountain started to wither. Boom! The shaking continued in the air. The raindrop divine matrix was on the verge of collapsing. Collect the spirit herbs, said Qiqiao. Yi Futian got to his feet and shifted his consciousness. Dreadful blares instantly came. The entire celestial mountain was shaking. Countless herbs and trees were sent into the air. He leaped into the air and waved his sleeve, where those herbs and trees all instantly flew into. Qiqiao was doing the same. They were like two bandits looting the place greedily. Finally a blare came. The raindrop divine matrix was destroyed. Those powerful cultivators charged down and saw Yi Futian and Qiqiao looting like crazy. Get going! A voice came. They certainly would not miss such an opportunity. They started to loot too. However, Yi Futian and Qiqiao had plundered more than half of the mountain before they started. Take him down, said someone, staring at Yi Futian. Goddess Qiao see you, said Yi Futian. Then he disappeared. No one had the nerve to attack Qiqiao in the West Sea domain. But he should not linger here longer. He had got what he wanted, and he had better leave immediately before anything else came up. He is gone. Seeing Yi Futian disappear, those cultivators put on a terrible look. Be asterisk starred. Cursed in anger someone from the West Imperial Palace. Yi Futian left. So they were doing everything for his sake. Many people even looked at Qiqiao unhappily, as it was her order. Chapter 2531. Recruitment. Chapter 2531. Recruitment. Qiqiao didn't seem to mind, however. She knew a little about some of Yi Futian's past, and knew of Yi Futian's character. He was not an ungrateful person. Therefore, Qiqiao didn't think she needed to say anything. As long as she did it, there was no need to mention it. And Yi Futian would not forget what she had done for him. Moreover, Yi Futian's choice to leave just now was the best choice in itself, because there was not much sense in staying. However, the people in West Imperial Palace were not very happy with him. It seemed to them that Yi Futian had gotten all the benefits with no repercussions. The island had been plundered by all the cultivators. It didn't take long for Celestial Mountain to be stripped entirely completely. Not even a tree was left, nor any plants, which was quite astounding. Afterward, they came to Qiqiao and surrounded her. Some cultivator from the ancient god clan asked her, Qiqiao, what did you get? Qiqiao glanced at the man and responded, I got no more than you. You had helped Yi Futian, so he should be returning to the West Imperial Palace, right? Some cultivators guessed. Qiqiao and Yi Futian had worked together. Therefore, the West Imperial Palace must have played a significant role. Otherwise, why would the cultivators from the West Imperial Palace arrange the raindrop divine matrix? Why are you asking me where he's going? Qiqiao asked with a smile. Upon hearing her words, a coldness came out from these people, and a pressure of might fell on her. Although the cultivators from the West Imperial Palace were unhappy with Qiqiao's decision, they came forward at this moment and scolded. Insolent creatures! Qiqiao's face turned icy as well. Her eyes became wickedly enchanting and indifferent. A faint chill was released from her. She said coldly, Don't forget, everyone, the place where you are standing now is the West Sea Domain. And the West Sea Domain was the territory of the West Imperial Palace. Even if it was other ancient god clan, would they dare to challenge the goddess of West Imperial Place in the West Sea Domain? The expressions on these cultivators spoke volumes. They had come this time purely based on rumors, and the top-level cultivators were not with them. In this West Sea Domain, if the top figures of the West Imperial Palace were to rush over as reinforcements, none of them would end up well. We will make it public that the West Imperial Palace and Yi Futian have teamed up. If West Imperial Palace wants to become a public enemy in the Divine Prefecture, we will make it a reality, someone threatened coldly. It was not a total exaggeration to speak of Yi Futian as a public enemy in the Divine Prefecture. Everyone knew that Yi Futian was the successor of Emperor Yi Qing, who was the enemy of Donghuang Imperial Palace. This made him a natural enemy of the Divine Prefecture. Let's go. These people flickered away and withdrew from this area. After a while, they had all disappeared. Although they made some gains, the biggest gain was reaped by Yi Futian. He might have swept away an imperial-level treasure and had now fled away. The West Imperial Palace didn't get anything out of this. We had just given it all away for nothing. Furthermore, we have offended all the major forces in the Divine Prefecture and possibly caused the displeasure of Donghuang Imperial Palace. Is this the result that the goddess wanted? Shi Qiyao's uncle remarked coldly. After the outsiders had left, he no longer maintained any formalities as he had before. He didn't even address her as Qiyao but called her goddess instead. Obviously, he was still sore from before, when Shi Qiyao overruled him with her title and status. My uncle is worrying too much. The relationship between the principalities of the Divine Prefecture has never been particularly friendly anyway. There was no offense to speak of. Donghuang Imperial Palace has never really interfered much in affairs among these principalities anyways. As for giving everything away, Shi Qiao smiled. I'm afraid I don't much agree with that sentiment either. Umph. The other man didn't buy it and snorted coldly. He said, I will report the situation to the palace lord after returning to the West Imperial Palace. Uncle, you are free to do whatever you wish. Shi Qiao smiled gently, as if she didn't care about anything that had taken place here. Let's go, another person said, and the group nodded. They then left through the air and proceeded to make their way back to the West Imperial Palace. In this area of the sea, only a barren island was left. There was nothing that remained to suggest anything celestial about the place. After being looted, it was nothing but a deserted island now. The news that Yi Futian had obtained the relic from the ancient Imperial Celestial Mountain quickly spread in the West Sea Domain and rocked the entire West Sea Domain. Not long ago, Yi Futian had caused an uproar in Yingzhou City, whose attacks on the West Sea Domain chief's manor had severely limited the mobility of its cultivators. The domain chief's manor did not even participate in this event, which suggested the magnitude of their fear, as caused by Yi Futian. What happened in Yingzhou City had made Yi Futian famous. However, afterward, Yi Futian had gotten hold of the deity map and swept away the relic, which caught everyone by surprise. What was the role that Taoist monk Mu played in all this? Soon, there were all kinds of speculations circulating in the West Sea Domain. After stealing the deity map, some said that Taoist monk Mu went to the West Imperial Palace and offered to work with them. Then, the West Imperial Palace found Yi Futian to work for them, and together they joined forces to take away the relic. Now, had Yi Futian gone to West Imperial Palace to share the loot? The relationship between Yi Futian and Shi Qiao, the goddess of West Imperial Palace, must be very good. But Yi Futian did not go to the West Imperial Palace. At this time, he was on top of Jiui Celestial Mountain, where Yi Futian stood quietly on a peak, his white hair flying in the wind. At this time, a figure flickered and appeared behind Yi Futian, calling out, Palace Lord. The person who came was Taoist monk Mu. Taoist monk Mu looked at Yi Futian, many different emotions flitting through his eyes. Word in Jiui City claimed that Yi Futian had obtained the relics of the ancient emperor. Does the Palace Lord really have it? Taoist monk Mu asked Yi Futian in slight disbelief. Yi Futian turned his head to look at Taoist Mu and nodded. Phew. Taoist monk Mu took a deep breath. The divine treasure had been obtained by Yi Futian, which was also what he dreamed of. If he were to work on his own, it would probably be an incredibly difficult task. But Yi Futian had done it just like that. Does it belong to the Western Imperial Palace or? Taoist monk Mu asked again. He shouldn't have asked anymore, but his strong desire to know compelled him to pose the question. This was very important, but it was especially important to him. Shi Qiao has helped a lot. Without her help, it would be difficult to get it so quickly. We are in a cooperative relationship. This time, we obtained the divine treasure. So we will not cheat West Imperial Palace of what is theirs in the future, Yi Futian responded. Taoist monk Mu understood immediately. It was completely different from the rumors circulating on the outside world. It was not the West Imperial Palace in the lead, but it was cooperation between Yi Futian and goddess Shi Qiao. Shi Qiao helped Yi Futian obtain the divine treasure. This also meant that Yi Futian was the dominant lead, and the divine treasure belonged to him. not the West Imperial Palace. How are the matters here that needed to be handled? Yi Futian asked. It's all been handled, Taoist monk Mu responded. Go and pick up your family? Yi Futian said. Yes, Taoist monk Mu nodded. Without saying anything further, the two disappeared above the mountain together, leaving Jui City. After picking up Taoist monk Mu's family members on this trip, they returned to the Ziwei segmentum to begin the next step, alchemy. In the Ziwei segmentum, at Ziwei Imperial Palace, Yi Futian returned with Taoist monk Mu and his family. The deputy palace lord of the Ziwei Imperial Palace, Ren Huangchun, came out to greet them. He came to Yi Futian and said, "The palace lord has returned." Yi Futian nodded. How is everything? Everything is good, Ren Huangchun said. After the incident at Donghua Palace, everyone is a little worried about palace lord being outside alone. But they will be relieved to know that you have returned safely. At Donghua Palace, Chief Shihai had slain Mo Yunzi as a show of force. As a result, Yi Futian asked the others to leave while he stayed behind by himself. The West Sea Domain Chief's manor has paid the price. From now on, no one will dare to touch us when we are out and about, Yi Futian said confidently. However, now the world is embroiled in chaos, and the original realm is a mess. If we want to open up the Ziwei segmentum, we will need to be much stronger. This hope has to be carried by you, Ren Huangchun. Me. Ren Huangchun was a little stunned at first, but then understood what Yi Futian meant. He said with a smile, although I have been through the first divine tribulation many years ago, the second divine tribulation seems to elude me. I am afraid it will be a little difficult. In the Ziwei segmentum, his realm was the highest. Yi Futian said that the hope was on him. It was naturally meant to encourage him, hoping that he would become the first cultivator here to survive the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Ren Huangchun is now in charge of the Ziwei scepter, and there is the Starry Cultivation Court. I will draw the Imperial Star to resonate with Ren Huangchun, so you can use this to comprehend and cultivate. Ren Huangchun must have confidence in this as well, said Yi Futian. Ren Huangchun showed a strange look when he heard Yi Futian's words, but he nodded soberly. Palace Lord is right, of course. I am getting on in age, and it kills my ambition. The Ziwei segmentum was also far too comfortable before Palace Lord appeared. This is Taoist monk Mu and his family. He's an alchemist of the tribulation plane. Yi Futian introduced Taoist monk Mu Ren Huangchun, who was a little impressed. He nodded slightly to Taoist monk Mu, who also nodded back in acknowledgement. There are still some things to be done. I need to trouble you to accompany Taoist monk Mu, Yi Futian said again. He needed to get some people to come here, and Taoist monk Mu would also assemble a team of alchemists for him. Of course, Ren Huangchun agreed readily. Let's go to the cultivation court first, Yi Futian said. Then moving forward in that direction, the group came to the Starry Cultivation Court, and many people came to greet him. You are back. Hua Jiyu came up to him. Yi Futian stepped forward and took her hand. He then looked around the crowd and said, I may have to retreat for some time. You don't need to be concerned about me. Just go on with your cultivation. Everyone laughed when they heard what he said. He had just gotten back, and now he wanted to go into retreat right away. All they could do was smile and shake their heads as they walked away. Come with me, Yi Futian said to Taoist monk Mu. He walked with Hua Jiyu while Taoist monk Mu followed behind. They came to a place in the starry sky, and Yi Futian faced Taoist monk Mu. You cultivated the lotus of creation. I will teach you a cultivation method of the flaming great path. Do not resist me. Yes. Taoist monk Mu looked serious as he nodded, opening up his consciousness. A divine light shot out of Yi Futian. It directly burrowed into Taoist monk Mu's brow chakra, as he passed the method to him. After a while, Taoist monk Mu opened his eyes, his heart beating quickly, and a brilliance flashed through his eyes. This was the divine method passed down by the great emperor. Yi Futian passed this on to him at this moment because, obviously, he didn't fully trust Taoist monk Mu until he came here with his family just now. Finally, Yi Futian felt comfortable enough to treat him as one of his own. But Taoist monk Mu could understand it. After all, the way they got to know each other was kind of irregular. Thank you, Palace Lord. Taoist monk Mu bowed down to thank him. Yi Futian had passed divine method to him. His action spoke volumes as to the kind of person he was. No need to be formal. You and Ren Huangchun have some hard work ahead of you, and this matter must be done flawlessly. Yi Futian said. If you encounter someone powerful that you want to recruit, you may teach parts of the divine method when necessary. Understood. Taoist monk Mu nodded, then turned to leave. He would work hard to recruit an alchemy team worthy of Yi Futian. Chapter 2532. Subdivine Elixir. Chapter 2532. Subdivine Elixir. Next, Yi Futian began to cultivate in retreat. West Sea Celestial Mountain did not have divine treasure or any other artifacts, but it did have a trace of will left by the ancient emperor, which was discovered and awakened by Yi Futian. This trace of will had bestowed the inheritance to Yi Futian. In Yi Futian's view, this was more precious than divine treasure. In the inheritance from the will of the ancient emperor, there were cultivation techniques, alchemical methods, extremely precious alchemical recipes, and the ancient emperor's own alchemical experience. These were divine treasures in their truest sense, the inheritance from a great emperor of alchemy. In Yi Futian's view, this inheritance was way more valuable than the inheritance from many other great emperors. It was no wonder that it had fallen into the hands of a top alchemy master. The divine method that Yi Futian passed on to Taoist monk Mu before was a set of divine flame cultivation methods, which could swallow and assimilate other flames of the way, in order to continuously strengthen oneself. This technique was called the divine flames of creation. In ancient times, it was the premier divine flame cultivation method. It was understandable that Taoist monk Mu became quite emotional after having received this divine method. Yi Futian was not worried about the recruitment. He knew Taoist monk Mu would complete this mission beautifully. Moreover, on this trip, Taoist monk Mu may also go collect some other flames of the way to improve his strength. However, Yi Futian himself did not intend to cultivate this divine method. His main energy needed to be spent on alchemy. At the Starry Cultivation Court, Yi Futian began a period of retreat for the sake of cultivation. For the time being, all affairs on the outside had come to an end. He had made a name for himself on his trip to the West Sea domain. What happened at Yingzhou City served as a deterrent, so no forces in the Divine Prefecture would dare move on them recklessly. Furthermore, Taoist monk Mu and Ren Huangchun, two tribulation plane cultivators traveling together, should be successful in their mission as long as they did not encounter giant-level figures from those top principalities. In addition, other cultivators in Ziwei Imperial Palace were working hard to improve their strength. Time passed day after day, and several months passed by in a blink of an eye. Soon Ren Hongchun and Taoist monk Mu returned. Not only did they come back, but they also brought back a group of alchemy masters. Back in the day when Yi Futian inherited the alchemy from the supreme deity Donglai on Eastern Deity Island, he met many alchemy masters. They were now also arriving here with goddess Donglai and the alchemy emperor. Ren Hongchun did not disturb Yi Futian when he saw that Yi Futian was in retreat. He understood what Yi Futian wanted to do, so he set up an alchemy pavilion in Ziwei Imperial Palace and appointed Taoist monk Mu as the pavilion master. As Ziwei Imperial Palace continued to grow in strength, he planned to propose some structural revisions to Yi Futian and appoint other major cultivators to take up different positions within the organization. On this day, above the Starry Cultivation Court, an extremely hot current manifested. Many people looked up in the sky and could see divine flames burning. A furnace of the Great Path seemed to be inside the divine flames, and Yi Futian could be seen practicing alchemy there. Moreover, Yi Futian had been practicing alchemy for quite some time already, but no one knew how much progress he had made by this time. Above the firmament, aside from the radiant divine flames, a potent and strong fragrance of an elixir now wafted through the air. It diffused and filled the entire starry sky. At this moment, an extremely oppressing aura came from above, causing all the cultivators of the Starry Cultivation Court to look up and pay attention. What is happening? Everyone's eyes sharpened as they focused on the sky above. A powerful aura came from outside the firmament, penetrating through the starry sky. Dark clouds overtaken the starry sky, make this space incredibly oppressive. The hearts of many powerful cultivators were beating quickly, especially Renhong Chun and Taoist monk Mu. They stared at the sky. This was the aura of tribulation. Elixir tribulation. Taoist monk Mu murmured, and his eyes were filled with shock. He, who was already a cultivator of the tribulation plane, could not conceal the shock he felt inside. Just like there were tribulations for cultivators, there were also elixir tribulations in alchemy. But what astonished him was whether Yi Futian was able to refine elixir at this level. The elixir that attracted the heavenly tribulation of the Great Path was known as the subdivine elixir. He had been practicing alchemy for many years. Not only had he never been able to achieve it himself, but he had never even seen anything like it before. But today he was finally seeing it. Just what kind of monstrous existence was Yi Futian? Master, what is that? In another direction, Yang Wuxia asked his teacher, Emperor Shi, somewhat amazed in his heart. Next to him, the Millet Emperor and Li Changxing were both also present as well. They all looked up yonder as they experienced the aura of the tribulation. Elixir tribulation. Yi Futian has refined subdivine elixir, Emperor Shi said. Even as knowledgeable as he was, it was the first time he saw the elixir tribulation with his own eyes. The things that Yi Futian was capable of were simply too stunning. Wasn't this going against the laws of nature? As the world was undergoing drastic changes at the moment, such an enchanting figure, as he would probably become a major player in this troubled world. One of the major players. The changes of heaven and earth originating in the original realm were no vain predicament. Nowadays, the original realm was already rewriting the history of the world. Hua Jiyu, Zhuge Mingyue, Gu Donglu, and the others all looked up at what was happening before them. Yi Futian's return this time would mean another metamorphosis for the Ziwei segmentum. The coercion became greater and stronger as the aura of tribulation descended. A terrible rumbling sound was heard, and a light of tribulation came from outside the sky, directly blasting above Yi Futian. There, a bright and brilliant pill was welcoming the light of tribulation, and it exploded with an incredibly splendid divine brilliance. Boom! The tribulation descended, baptizing and impacting the pill, but did not blast it into pieces. The tribulation of alchemy is a little different from the tribulation of the cultivators, Emperor Shi murmured to himself. But this was to be expected. It was alchemy after all. Boom! Elixir tribulation descended successively, blasting on that pill again and again. Everyone counted to themselves each time the blast came down, and their hearts throbbed with each descendant of the elixir tribulation. Finally, the elixir tribulation gradually dissipated after 10 consecutive light of tribulation. The divine light that illuminated from the pill was even more radiant and dazzling. Success! Yi Futian raised his head to look at the pill. After working so hard for so many days, he had finally produced the first subdivine elixir. Wisps of aura shrouded the pill as Yi Futian swept it towards him. He reached out and grabbed it, a big smile on his face. Xinyuan Pill Grade 10. In the ancient emperor's inheritance, Xinyuan Pill was a legendary elixir. Xinyuan Pill was said to have a total of 12 grades. Xinyuan Pill of Grade 12 was an elixir at the imperial level already. Grade 10 and Grade 11 were at the level of subdivine elixirs. According to legend, there was even a Grade 13 Xinyuan Pill. But even the ancient emperor would not know whether this was true or not. However, these concerns were still a little distant from Yi Futian at the moment, as he had no time to think that far ahead. It was a rare feat to be able to produce Xinyuan Pill of the 10th grade. Only one. That's not enough to share. And a Xinyuan Pill alone may not necessarily be enough, Yi Futian thought as he put away the pill. Fortunately, he had collected enough medicinal plants on the celestial island this time. Any one of those medicinal plants traded in the outside world would be a rare treasure, invaluable and priceless. But to refine the elixir of the topmost quality, only the most precious medicinal plants could be used. At a time like this, he couldn't afford to be stingy. Yi Futian continued to work on the pills and elixirs, so everyone went about doing their own things again. However, it was hard to calm themselves down for a long time afterward. At the same time, some hopes and expectations sparked within them. However, this shock seemed to have just begun. In the next few months, as they cultivated under constant tribulation, they frequently encountered elixir tribulations. Gradually, they got accustomed to seeing them. They knew that Yi Futian was massively producing a large amount of subdivine elixirs. Because of the preciousness of these medicinal plants, Yi Futian couldn't afford to waste any of them. He didn't dare to risk producing the elixirs in batches, so he was forced to refine one pill at a time. However, regarding anything below the grade of the subdivine elixir, Yi Futian was able to produce en masse. He treated the times he spent producing these elixirs as times for rest. At the same time, he also did it to help his family and friends who were still in the Renhuang realm. In the future, the pills they take would be handed over to Taoist monk Mu to produce. Of course, besides using them on the cultivators belonging to Ziwei Imperial Palace, Yi Futian also needed to prepare some other elixirs for another use. Finally, on this day, Yi Futian stopped alchemy. Afterward, he summoned Renhong Chun, Taoist monk Mu, Emperor Shi, and other cultivators. Elder, I will give some prescriptions to you, because I will need to trouble you to make some of these elixirs in the future. Yi Futian smiled at Taoist monk Mu. No problem. No need for Palace Lord to be so formal. Old Mu will do it in the future, Taoist monk Mu said. Palace Lord, I had a suggestion in mind before, but I did not want to bother you during your cultivation. Ziwei Imperial Palace will only become stronger in the future, and some things should get started now. Taoist monk Mu is a tribulation plane cultivator, and I had taken the liberty to set up the alchemy pavilion, naming him the pavilion master. In addition, I proposed Taoist monk Mu be named the deputy palace master, and Emperor Shi as well, Run Huangqin said. At present, there were 4 tribulation plane cultivators inside Ziwei Imperial Palace. Hua Jiyu needed no mentioning for the time being. She was the wife of the palace lord, and did not need to be appointed to any other positions. In addition, Run Huangqin, Taoist monk Mu, and Emperor Shi were all tribulation plane cultivators. Emperor Shi had been cultivating here for many years, and Taoist monk Mu had been recently recruited by Yi Futian. They would both serve as deputy palace masters, uniting everyone old and new. Yi Futian nodded. It is true, but before that, first use the elixir to improve your cultivation to see if there is a chance for a breakthrough. With that said, he took out 2 pills and handed them over to Ren Huangqin. Both of these pills are subdivine elixirs and are to be taken at the same time. I will summon the divine glory of the Imperial Star again to see if there is an opportunity to be had. Very well. Ren Huangqin nodded with a grave expression. He appeared particularly serious. Yi Futian handed the same 2 pills to Taoist monk Mu and Emperor Shi as well, saying, You can take it now, or you can take it when your realm is deeper, and the chances might be greater. I need to cultivate for a few more years and see. After all, my realm still has a lot to be desired, Taoist monk Mu said. Emperor Shi solemnly put them away, and he didn't need anyone to tell him just how precious these 2 subdivine elixirs were. His decision to stay in the Ziwei segmentum seemed to be the right one. In the future, perhaps he would have the opportunity to move upward in realm. I won't say anything so mundane as thank you, Emperor Shi told Yi Futian. This was something that he could only be repaid down the road later. Emperor Shi had taken risks on my account, staying behind in the Ziwei segmentum to maneuver between life and death. This kind of favor cannot be simply repaid by 2 little pills. Right now, my ability is limited, but in the future, I will be able to produce stronger elixir to help everyone's cultivation, said Yi Futian. He was not humble. He had offended Danhuang Imperial Palace, which qualified him as a public enemy of all of the divine prefecture. Emperor Shi's staying behind had put him at a huge risk. No matter where he was, a character like him could enjoy a high position and cultivate at will if he wanted to, just like he did before on Turtle Deity Island. Carefree and without a care in the world. Chapter 2533. Uncle Xia and Palace Lord Yi. Chapter 2533. Uncle Xia and Palace Lord Yi. After Yi Futian distributed the elixirs to the three of them, he then headed towards the starry sky with Ren Huangchen. They came under the starry sky. Ren Huangchen sat cross-legged with the starry scepter placed across his lap. He closed his eyes and started to cultivate. Yi Futian raised his head. Suddenly, above the firmament, imperial stars sprinkled down all of their divine brilliance as they landed on Ren Huangchen. This was not communicated by Ren Huangchen himself, but was summoned by Yi Futian, so that Ren Huangchen may better perceive the divine glory of the imperial stars. At the same time, a phantom appeared in the starry sky. It turned out to be the face of Ziwei the Great. An infinite imperial majesty descended like the divine might. This divine might also descended on Ren Huangchen, as if the divine power of the entire starry sky was shrouding him. At the same time, Ren Huangchen felt a powerful oppressive force from the imperial majesty, which was precisely Yi Futian's purpose, to allow Ren Huangchen to perceive the imperial majesty clearly. Ren Huangchen bathed in the divine glory. Even his robe was now rendered in tremendous brilliance, as the divine light flowed all around him. Yi Futian took a look at him before he turned to leave. At the same time, Ren Huangchen tossed a pill into his mouth. This was all that Yi Futian could do. Ren Huangchen must rely on himself to comprehend everything else that came after. He had remained in the first stage of divine tribulation for many years, and there was great depth in his realm. However, he had never been able to find the aura of the second divine tribulation. Yi Futian hoped this starry sky world and the two elixirs could help him achieve that. In the starry cultivation court, many were focusing on Ren Huangchen. Everyone knew that Yi Futian had placed his hopes on him. Under the current circumstances, they were facing nothing but giant-level principalities. But in Ziwei Segimentum, they lacked giant-level cultivators. Ren Huangchen was the cultivator closest to impacting the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Later, Yi Futian gathered a group of cultivators to his side again. These cultivators were not the ones who had experienced the divine tribulations, but they were other important figures in the organization. There were cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace, and some of his old allies like his big brother, third senior brother, Do Zhao, Xiao Muyu, and some others. Among them were elders such as Lord Taixian, Sky River Great Elder, Emperor Nan, and Xiao Dingtian. Yi Futian had been cultivating alchemy in retreat. He was then preoccupied with the production of the elixirs, and produced the first batch of elixirs. He personally refined the first batch of elixirs and distributed them to everyone. But after this, he planned to hand over the production of the elixirs to Taoist monk Mu and the others, unless it was some special potion. Elixirs below the grade of subdivine elixir were relatively simple for Yi Futian, so he spent most of his time refining subdivine elixir. Many of these elixirs were refined in batches, but for Ren Huang level cultivators, it was extremely precious nonetheless. Some of these elixirs had been long lost, and their recipes came from the inheritance of the elixir emperor. Yi Futian distributed the elixirs to everyone. Many cultivators in Ziwei Imperial Palace already had strong cultivation themselves, and many of them were in peak Ren Huang realm. Now that they had obtained elixirs of such high grade, all of them were elated. These people, as well as Blind Tai, Old Ma, and the others, had a great chance to elevate themselves to the tribulation plane. Ziwei Segmentum, as it were, was not as strong as it could be. However, the rest of the cultivators all had great potentials, especially this upcoming generation of cultivators, such as Gu Donglu, Yi Wuchen, Fang Huan, Do Zhao. Many of them had followed Yi Futian and grew along with him for a long time. Although they had not yet reached peak level in their own cultivation, their foundation was solid enough. In addition, they cultivated while bathing under the imperial stars in the starry cultivation court. Several of Yi Futian's disciples, like Fang Siyuan and the others, all possessed unlimited potential with natural bodies of the Great Path. Now, with the help of the elixirs, as long as Ziwei Segmentum was given proper time to develop, they would not be weaker than any other principalities, except for those truly magnificent great emperor-level forces. Finally, Yi Futian received Lord Taixien, Sky River Great Elder, Xiao Dingtian, and the clan chief of the Dou clan, basically the older generation that came out of the original realm, and took out quite a lot of elixirs to give to them. "My lord and grandmaster," he said, "your cultivation is somewhat different. The path you walked on is different also, perhaps a bit more difficult than the rest. Even amongst false emperors, there is a distinction between weak and strong. We can only work with this imperfect heavenly path the best we can." Lord Taixien and the others nodded. They knew that their foundations were a little shakier than the others, and they were quite sorry for this as well. With an imperfect great path, they could not go as far as the others, and their combat effectiveness was also not as great. Although they broke through the realm of Renhuang, it was difficult for them to fight against Renhuang in the 9th realm, because their great path was flawed. The so-called false emperors were those destined never to become true emperors in this life. The elixir here is capable of building up the physical body and spiritual soul, but will do nothing to the perception of the great path. Yi Futian continued, "I heard that there are actually 3 realms in the realm of the false emperor, corresponding to the 3 tribulations. The only difference being that its combat effectiveness was considerably lesser. However, it is said that after the collapse of the heavenly path, there were cultivators who had cultivated to the top level of this realm, integrated with this imperfect path, and their combat effectiveness was no lesser than those who had survived the second divine tribulation of the great path." Lord Taixien and the others nodded, knowing that Yi Futian was trying to comfort them. In fact, they knew that it was too difficult to elevate in the realm they were in. Most of the cultivators who could reach the peak were cultivators with perfect great path. Moreover, when it came to combat, in their current state, they were not as effective as peak Renhuang with a perfect great path. Even Yi Futian had said that if they cultivated to the extent that they could, they would only ever be at the level comparable to the existence of those who had survived the second divine tribulation of the great path. It was the same as saying that their combat effectiveness was one whole level lower than their realm. However, it was a rare opportunity to have a chance to continue to elevate themselves. If they were to rely on their cultivation, it would be a difficult task, but Yi Futian's elixirs and this cultivating court should improve their chances. "I'm visiting several other teachers." Yi Futian said goodbye with a smile. He would never forget to share anything good with his teachers. Qi Xianggang, Dozhan, and Hua Fenglu were a little bit lower in their cultivation, and had all relocated to the Ziwei Imperial Palace as well. Although they may not be able to raise their cultivation to the top level, especially Hua Fenglu and Dozhan, at least Yi Futian would not allow their cultivation to be too poorly, even if it was to delay their aging process. Of course, there were many other elders from the 9 states to think of, including Zhuge Qingfeng and the others. However, the making of these elixirs would be handed over to the alchemists assembled by Taoist monk Mu in the future. Having visited several of his teachers, Yi Futian came to another palace within the complex of Ziwei Imperial Palace. The person residing here was someone who had been kind to him before, Emperor Xia, after chaos erupted in the original realm, and before leaving the original realm, Yi Futian brought all his family and friends to the Ziwei Segmentum. Because he worried about Emperor Xia's safety in the turbulent realm, he took him to the Ziwei Segmentum and arranged a palace for Emperor Xia, his family, and associates in the Ziwei Imperial Palace. After all, Emperor Xia used to be the lord of an entire realm. This particular palace was very spacious, with many other halls attached to it. In addition to Emperor Xia, Yaya and Swordmaster Lihan were cultivating here as well. They were Emperor Xia's subordinates from before, but now they were acquaintances and old friends. Staying together meant that they could keep each other company. They would often go to the Ziwei Segmentum to walk around and experience its people and culture. Ziwei Segmentum, as an independent body, was much larger than Emperor Xia's realm. At this time, Emperor Xia was playing chess with Swordmaster of Lihan in the courtyard in front of the main hall. Seeing Yi Futian's arrival, Emperor Xia merely glanced at him and ignored his presence altogether. The Swordmaster of Lihan smiled at Yi Futian and nodded to acknowledge him. "Futian, Swordmaster, Yi Futian responded with a smile, then looked at Emperor Xia and addressed him. Uncle Xia. I don't deserve to be addressed like that. Emperor Xia looked neither right nor left as he put down the chess piece in his hand. He never once looked at Yi Futian. Ahem. Swordmaster of Lihan was a little embarrassed and said, I think I am losing this game. Emperor Xia, I have some issues regarding cultivation that I need to look at, so I'm going to take my leave now. No, it's not over yet. Keep going. Emperor Xia replied quite demandingly. Although he could no longer defeat the Swordmaster of Lihan nowadays, he was once the liege of the Swordmaster, and as such, he still held the upper hand in the relationship. Swordmaster of Lihan smiled sheepishly and kept his head low as he continued with the game. How could he not know the good and the bad between Emperor Xia and Yi Futian? He was no fool. Many years ago, when he was still in Emperor Xia's realm, he thought that some things would come to fruition, but in the end, they didn't pan out as expected. Yi Futian could do nothing about it either. So he said, Uncle Xia, I just refined some elixirs and am here to give them to you. I have no need for them. Palace Lord, you better not interrupt me playing chess. Emperor Xia still did not look at Yi Futian. He replied coldly with an unfriendly tone. Unable to do anything, Yi Futian looked at Swordmaster of Lihan for help. Give them to me. Swordmaster of Lihan took the initiative to speak at this time. I recently encountered some problems in cultivation, and these elixirs might help. Yes, of course. Yi Futian nodded. He proceeded to give 3 portions to Swordmaster of Lihan. Both of them understood for whom they were intended. Uncle Xia, where is Qingyuan? I have some elixirs to give her also, said Yi Futian. She's cultivating in retreat, and is not receiving guests. Palace Lord, yet better come again another day. Emperor Xia replied. I will leave after I have delivered the elixirs to her. Yi Futian had no temper at all when facing Emperor Xia. After all, Emperor Xia was an elder who had done him favors before. Back then in the 9 states, if it weren't for Emperor Xia, he would have perished a long time ago. Just set it down. Emperor Xia replied as if he was upset. Yi Futian smiled awkwardly. But at this moment, he saw a beautiful figure coming at him. I just happen to need some elixirs for cultivation, said a voice. Xia Qingyuan walked to Yi Futian and took the elixirs from him. She said with a smile, Thank you. Useless, Emperor Xia muttered. Xia Qingyuan had always been his favorite, but at the moment, he wished she could be a little more strict. But Xia Qingyuan didn't care. Yi Futian gave a wry smile when he heard her say, Thank you. What these 2 words represented was a sense of distance. If it were before, Xia Qingyuan would have never said thank you to him. If there is nothing else, I will go cultivate now. Xia Qingyuan looked at Yi Futian with those beautiful eyes of hers, and there was nothing unusual in them. She was just overly polite, and politeness created a sense of distance. Yes, go. Yi Futian wanted to say something else but wasn't sure what to say, so he could only give her a nod. Xia Qingyuan nodded lightly, then turned to leave. Emperor Xia looked at her departing figure and sighed secretly in his heart. Then, with even more displeasure, he looked at Yi Futian and said, In the future, Palace Lord Yi should refrain from coming here to disrupt my chess game. I'll visit Uncle Xia again when I have time. Yi Futian didn't take offense. He was indeed the one who wronged her, so how could he be mad? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.